Welcome to NFL Total Access. If you're scoring at home, we are 8 days shy of the start of the NFL Draft. My name is MJ Acosta-Ruiz, and I'm joined by a full roster tonight. Willie McGinest, Maurice Jones-Drew, and the Cynthia Freeland are in studio with me tonight. It's a good thing they're here, too, because we have a lot to unpack, starting with an interesting press conference today in Philly. Now, given the opportunity to declare Jalen Hurts the current Eagles starting QB, Coach Nick Sirianni and GM Howie Roseman declined. The first-time head coach says it's early in the offseason process and he wants to see some competition.
Why did you trade back from number 6, and what does it have to do with the quarterback situation there? And are we to take this as Jalen Hurts is now the starter of this team?
To name any starters at this particular time, we've been working with these guys for 2 days, right? We've been working with these guys for 2 days. My biggest thing is competition. Again, we've talked a little bit about my core values. It's my second core value. It's this team's second core value. Competition's a huge thing, and we're going to have competition at every position.
All right, roll call. Maurice Jones-Drew, Cynthia Freeland, and Willie McGinest. Guys, that's not exactly what we were expecting from Sirianni.
All right, Nick.
We've all had conversations here about Jalen Hurts being the guy in Philly, right? Willie, I mean, was this a good move by Sirianni saying that? What does it even mean?
Well, I get it. It's one of his core values. And as a head coach, a new head coach, you want to instill, and set the table and let everybody know it's going to be about competition at every position. But as players, we know who the starters are. We know who's going to come into day one and who the guys are. That message isn't for Jalen Hurts or some of the other guys on the roster. That message is for the other guys that need to go out and compete and play at a high level. Now, as a new coach, you guys have to understand this. The one thing you want to do is come into a situation and not have distractions, especially in Philadelphia, where the quarterback situation has been up and down and inconsistent over the past few years. People will speak their voice, and you will hear from the radio stations and everybody else. I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to set the table and all that. But as far as your team, you need to address them separately so they know what's going on and have a plan in place.
Yeah, I think you just don't have a game plan against the Washington football team or the Dallas Cowboys. You have to have a game plan for every interview, for every meeting that you go into. Right. You have to understand what you're trying to convey to your team. Now, if I'm a guy, where are we at? There we go. If I'm a guy that is on the Eagles, and I've been on teams where we've had quarterback competitions, I've always been told, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. Period, point blank. And that's what it seems like to me if you're saying, well, we want competition at the quarterback position. No, like...
Who is it, Joe Flacco?
Yeah, is it Joe Flacco? Are we going to draft a guy in the second round? Are we going to draft a guy in the third? What are we going to do? And so for me, like you said, well, you're just creating an extra distraction that you have to get away from. That you're going to have to answer in a couple months from now come training camp when they like, is Jalen Hurts the quarterback? Like, just go out there and say, listen, if Jalen Hurts is the guy on our roster right now, yes, we want to create competition throughout. And that's going to be, like you said, for the other guys, the position battles. Maybe it's left tackle. Maybe it's the receiver. Maybe it's DB. Those are the guys you want to talk to. Don't talk about this guy because this guy's going to have to lead your team. You have to be able to talk and not necessarily stroke his ego, but be a guy that breathes confidence into your quarterback.
And talking about confidence, maybe he needs a little help with the interviewing process. Right? Because I just think that this is one of those situations where this is a new head coach. He doesn't have much experience giving these pressers. I think he wants to portray these are my core values. I want to talk about all of these interesting things. But he doesn't have a quarterback controversy. Come on, buddy. Let's just be. He followed that up with the rest of the interview saying that on Zoom calls he played rock, paper, scissors with people who were potential draft prospects to see if they were competitive or not. So realistically speaking, I think this is just more, maybe we're seeing him get his reps as a head coach.
No, I get that. And we did that in our locker room. Everything was a competition. Who could drink the most water? Who would get to the workout earlier? Who was watch more tape? And it does something for the camaraderie in the team. We all pushed each other, everything that we did, and I understand that. But as a head coach, the thing you want to do is absorb everything, absorb all the questions, and so your team can get ready, especially when you try to instill a program and get guys to buy into a blueprint. The good coaches, the great coaches, they don't say anything, they say less.
Right.
And the team knows what's going on, and everybody else got to figure it out, especially when you're just starting out.
By the way, Cynthia Freeland, the Rochambeau champion here on this stage. But listen, what really stood out to me, Willie, as you said, that message is not for Jalen Hurts. Remember we had him on the show back Super Bowl week in February?
Yeah.
He was calm, he was confident, but he also wasn't boasting like, yeah, I'm the #1.
That's not him.
Played it close to the vest, of course, but I think he's going into this with the right mindset. You're right. I don't think that message is for him at all. But also, let's be serious about the whole thing. Soon enough. Okay, so check it. In Jaguars franchise history, the highest spot where they've drafted a QB is at 3rd overall when they selected Blake Bortles in 2014. They've selected 2 other QBs in the top 10, Brian Leftwich in 2003 and Blaine Gabbert in 2011. All right, let's kick it over to James Palmer. He's got a little more on the Jaguars draft outlook.
So it appears that Jaguars head coach Urban Meyer and general manager Trent Baalke won't be revealing that it's Trevor Lawrence with the #1 overall pick, but it does appear that they're staying in the #1 spot. Baalke told me he has fielded calls about moving out of the top spot, but told me that he does believe they are sticking put. Now, the Jaguars have been very creative about gaining as much information as they can about these draft picks, and when they've done that with Trevor Lawrence, Baalke said that the stars have all aligned. There is not a single piece of negativity within their evaluation of Trevor Lawrence. And Urban Meyer spoke at length about the addition of Darrell Bevell as their offensive coordinator. He talked to Brett Favre, Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson, all about how he has prepared them as quarterbacks, and specifically what Bevell did to get Russell Wilson ready to go early in his career and playing at a high level. Well, that's a big reason he's the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville. Whether it's with Trevor Lawrence, it's with Trevor Lawrence.
Antonio Brown has settled the sexual assault lawsuit with a former trainer. The terms of that deal were not announced. Earlier today, though, Bucs general manager Jason Licht spoke about the possibility of re-signing Brown, who is a free agent.
Well, it's always good when there is some resolution, but we signed him, like you said, last year with that, with the civil case looming. So all I can go off of is what we saw of Antonio on our team this year. And, you know, he obviously was a good player, but he was a great teammate. So to have this resolved, it certainly helps, but it wasn't, you know, that's not that necessarily the deciding factor of whether or not we're going to continue to talk.
Bringing in Mike Garafolo for some other news around the league. All right, Mike G. NFL owners, they approved some rule changes today. What are the details on that?
MJ, the bigger one that folks have been discussing today is the replay official will now have more of an impact during the course of a game, at least if he or members of the NFL officiating committee in New York see things that happen quickly during the course of a game. They can address what are termed specific objective aspects of a play when clear and obvious video evidence is present. So we're talking about penalty enforcement, proper down, spot of a foul, game clock, complete or incomplete pass, touching by a player or location of the ball in relation to out of bounds. So things that teams used to have to challenge outside of 2 minutes. Well, now the replay official, he can proactively stop the game to say, hey, you missed that one, you got it wrong, you got to change it the other way. The official can consult him. So it's somewhere between where it used to be and the sky judge that can throw a flag. We're not there yet. We can't have anybody from above calling holding, calling pass interference, or any of those things, but something objective that the replay official or the members of the NFL officiating committee can see quickly and change during a course of a game. Now we'll start to see that during the course of a game. One of the other changes today that I know a lot of folks are intrigued by is the expansion of the number of jersey numbers that players can wear. And really, we're talking about the single digits because that's the ones that a lot of folks are going to say, hey, it's going to look kind of cool when you see a defensive back, a running back, a tight end, an H-back, a wide receiver, or maybe even a linebacker wearing single digits. And really, this is a functional thing. There are more practice squad players now than there have been in the past. We certainly have a number of retired numbers as well as numbers that aren't given out anymore, even if they're not retired. Think about Michael Strahan, 92 with the Giants, one of those examples. Plenty of those around the league. We're running out of numbers. So the Kansas City Chiefs said, hey, can we just expand the numbers that guys can use? So you're going to start to see some numbers that maybe you saw in college. A linebacker wearing a single digit, you'll see it in the NFL now.
And, of course, Mike G, the guys all over this around the league, the players calling dibs, if you will. The reactions all over social media to some of the rule changes, especially that one about the numbers. Look at this. Saquon Barkley. Could you see me in any other number besides 26? No, I guess we can't, Saquon. Patrick Queen, though. Hey, Lamar, how much you want for that number 8. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work or if that's going to happen there. But this one really got me. A.J. Brown tweeting Warren Moon, I was about to bother you and ask you, is there any way I could wear that number 1 until I read your bio? I'm not even deserving, to be honest. Thank you for everything you've done for the game. A legend. Salute. Smart move there to pivot. A.J. Brown. All right, get ready for the biggest season ever right here on NFL Network. It's a first look at the entire 2021 NFL schedule with an in-depth analysis of every team and division. Watch schedule release 21, presented by Verizon on NFL Network. That's 8 Eastern, Wednesday, May 12th. The Packers, they're pretty hype about it. The team tweeting out this Aaron Rodgers GIF with the hashtag Go Pack Go. Is a GIF, is a GIF, I will never say that right. The Chiefs also sharing the same excitement with this animated photograph of...
Okay, show me what you got, baby. Another pick by Patrick Surtain. Fires into the end zone as he weaved inside of a defender. Got it in the end zone.
Still singing the rest of the lyrics in my head. All right, the Miami Dolphins are building off the success they saw in 2020. Not only did Chris Greer and company wheel and deal for 5 picks in the first 3 rounds of this year's draft, they also have 5 first-round picks in the next 3 drafts. And let's not forget, they added some much-needed depth at running back, wide receiver, and cornerback. Hey, Omar Ruiz, he's got more on the Fins draft outlook.
The Dolphins are loaded in this year's draft with 4 picks in the first 50 selections. General manager Chris Greer has already wheeled and dealed from 3 to 12 and back into the top 10 at 6. And he might not be done. He said the Dolphins are open for business. They'll entertain aggressive trade offers for even more draft capital.
We'll always listen to everything. We've shown that. And I think you owe it to your team and your organization to always listen to any offers that may or may not come. And at the end of the day, you know, as the draft falls and gets towards our pick, if, you know, someone wants to call and they make an aggressive pitch to us, we'll evaluate it, look at the board and look at our options, and we'll make the decision that's best for the Miami Dolphins at that point.
Of course, Tua Tagovailoa is the focal point of this Dolphins offense. However, he's not the sole focus of this year's draft for the Dolphins. Greer is saying that they'll do what's best for the team first and foremost, with, of course, a large consideration for the compatibility with Tua. Greer also expressing a high amount of confidence and expectations that Tua grows from his rookie season into year number 2.
Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft has the Dolphins taking Jamar Chase at 6 overall. DJ has the Fins keeping the used edge rusher Gregory Rousseau right there in Miami at 18th overall. I like it. It's time for On the Clock, presented by Safe Flight Auto Glass. All right, guys, so the first 2 rounds, or first 2 picks right off the bat for Miami, right there in the first round, Cynthia Freeland and MJD. We're going to have 2:30 on the clock here for you. I'll start with you, MJD. What are the Fins going to do? 6 and 18?
Well, I'll go with 6, and I'll say it's either going to be Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase. And the reason being is it's all about Tua, right? You want to make sure you build around your quarterback. First, you tried to protect him last year. At 6, now it's time to get him some big-time weapons. Kyle Pitts. Remember what Darren Waller did to the Miami Dolphins in Vegas last year? Got after him. I mean, they couldn't stop him at all. So when you get beat like that, you try to go get a guy to emulate that. Or you go with Jamar Chase, who is a number 1 wide receiver, if not one of the best, most productive wide receivers at LSU, where you have Odell Beckham Jr. and all these other things. Guys are talking about how great he can be. And so you have a guy that has the size and the ability to go out there and be your number 1 wide receiver for your quarterback to throw the ball to. I mean, that's what you want to build around, right, Cynthia?
Well, I like this because really what the Dolphins has is maximum flexibility. 4 picks in the top 50. That's a ton, but you know what's better than 4? 5 picks in the top 50. If you look to see where both Chris Greer and where Brian Flores have been raised, they're kind of in that Patriot mold, meaning they could easily trade down. And, you know, we talk about, like, you know, a tight end being a quarterback's best friend, a running back being a quarterback's wide receiver. Why not get all of them, right? Go get all of them and then add to the defense as well, especially in the latter half of that second, or the beginning of the second round, the latter half of the first round. Add so that you have the sum of the parts being way more than just each individual one.
I'm going to be greedy. Can I be greedy for your team? Let me be greedy. I'll say this. For me, it's all about putting the best player around your quarterback. I don't want the 2nd or 3rd wide receiver or the 2nd or 3rd. Give me the best. Put the best guys out there, because that's how you win games in the National Football League, is talent. The talent wins games. So, you know what? I'm going to draft a punter for the Dolphins at 6 to make sure we get him right there so the Jags get a chance to bounce back up for you guys. How about that?
A punter. We talk all this, and you're going to get a punter. All right.
Who do you want?
You know who
I don't know who you want.
Actually, a guy that you had in the mock draft, Najee Harris, is a guy that I would love to see in Miami.
You could get him in the second round. Perfect.
No, not the second round. We're talking. Oh, if he doesn't go to Miami at 18, he'll get drafted by someone else at 20.
Everybody looking at me like I was crazy.
Okay.
That's what I thought. But that's what you said. Best player in the draft.
You better take him at 6 then.
Okay. I don't know about all that.
Running backs matter.
Anything can happen. All right, MJD and Sin. I think you beat the clock. We certainly did it. All right, we are 8 days away from the draft presented by Verizon. 8 Eastern Thursday, April 29th. The setup, it continues in Cleveland. Willie has a word of advice for some prospects. What you talking about, Willie?
Well, what I'm talking about is how a lot of these teams, they look at the first round, and players, they look at the first round only, and they think after the first round, there's no gold in the latter rounds. Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you, all those players that go high, top 10 picks in their first round, deservingly so, they've earned that, and they've been productive. But if you look throughout our league and you look at some of the best impactful players that have so much production, you find those players in the 3rd through the 6th round. And if to name a few, if you're talking about a guy like Russell Wilson, Alvin Kamara, and how about this guy, Tyrann Mathieu, a lot of adversity coming out of college. He overcame it, All-Pro 3 times. Now he's an ambassador of the game. Let's go down a little bit further. How about George Kittle? You never heard of him, the tight end from the 49ers? One of the best players in the league. Richard Sherman, Tyreek Hill, Tom Brady, the GOAT, 6th round. Listen, I get it. You can be discouraged if you don't go first round and you're not a top 10 pick. But the evaluators, the guys that are scouting and these GMs and these coaches, they understand. If they do their homework, you can find gold in the latter rounds and you can find some of the best players that play our game. So,
this draft, Asante Samuel getting some buzz here at number 4 from Bucky. J.C. Horn at number 2. And the top corner in Bucky's list, who do you think? Alabama's Patrick Surtain. Here are his thoughts on the upcoming draft.
You know, I just think that, you know, at Alabama, we prepared very well just for games, you know, getting ready for the next level. And I think, you know, I'm shaped up to succeed on the next level based on what I've done in the past, especially with my dad and Coach Saban. You know, I just think I'm very pro-ready. I'm just ready for the next level and see what's at hand.
Okay, so you don't have to talk the numbers here. These are the Power 5 cornerbacks with the highest coverage grade going back to 2018. You guessed it, Patrick Surtain is in the top spot right there. Willie, what's the right fit for this young man? Which team is going to utilize him the best?
Any team that gets this kid is going to be lucky. I coached him at the Nike Open, and when I talk about his demeanor, his IQ for the game, his ability to go out and do anything in every phase of the game, he's rare. And when you find a cornerback that's tall, big, fast, strong, that can play in zone and man-to-man, you got to snatch him up early. So Pat Surtain II, when you watch him and you look at the tape, roll the tape, Carlos, when you look at the tape, he's the zone guy. He's going to jump routes. He can read routes. He's long. He can jump you. He's not afraid to play press man-to-man. He can get up on big receivers, press them, run with them, great ball skills. He'll find the ball and make a play. Or he can shut you down when you won't get it. Put him on the island. Doesn't matter. That's one of the best receivers in the game. You shut him down. And then the other thing you want to have a guy that's not afraid to come up and tackle. Look at him out of his face. Great leverage, comes up, great technique, head on the outside, wraps the guy up. Again, in space, he's very good. As a big guy, he's not afraid to tackle. He's going to get guys down with his grabs. The other thing is, look at him come up and shed. This is rare for a cornerback, MJ, to come up, hit the blocker, get off, and make the tackle. Now, the kid is fluid. His hands are strong and they're deadly. He does a lot of different things. I can see him with the Dallas Cowboys at the 10th pick. DJ Jeremiah said that he was born to play in Dan Quinn's system. He is absolutely right. He can play in the cover 3, he can play in the zones, he can play man-to-man, but to be able to digest information, personnel groups, come off in zone and space, play great, he's fluid, and make big plays, he's the perfect guy for the Dallas Cowboys. And they haven't had a guy like this in a long time. He is a difference maker, and if he's there at number 10, if he's there, they better snatch him up.
The big if being there.
Right.
We're watching this film here. Who does he remind you of when you're watching him
Well,
back?
there's a few guys. I mean, if you look at Richard Sherman, because he's cerebral, he's smart, he's a student of the game, he's long, he has great ball skills. Sherman is one of those guys who's not afraid to be put on the island. He played in his own system. Well, guess what? Dan Quinn was in that system. So when you talk about comparisons, he's the guy that matches up to me like a Richard Sherman type of guy. And also Stephon Gilmore, a guy that's fluid in space, that can do a lot of different things, sneaky fast, that's smart, that's also can go up and make great plays on the ball.
You know, this is high praise for sure, comparing them to those two guys. But this is a legacy player, right? His dad, an 11-year vet. You said his dad was a what on the field?
A beast.
Yes, it looks like his son definitely following in those footsteps. All right, Willie, thank you. And of course, we'll know pretty soon. The 2021 NFL Draft presented by Verizon is next week. It all starts 8 Eastern, Thursday, April 29th, live from Cleveland. You can watch on NFL Network, ESPN, and ABC. NFL Network, your home for all things draft. Okay, let's get you caught up on the latest headlines. The Eagles declined to name Jalen Hurts the starting quarterback today. New head coach Nick Sirianni said the early offseason process and a desire at competition at every position, well, those are the reasons he wouldn't declare Hurts the starter. All right, go ahead and save the date. The NFL schedule release is set for 8 Eastern, Wednesday, May 12th. Get a first look at the entire 2021 NFL schedule with an in-depth analysis on every team and division. Watch Schedule Release 21 presented by Verizon right here on NFL Network. Shifting gears to some much tougher news, reaction from the guilty verdict in the Derek Chauvin murder trial is still pouring in from NFL players and teams. Players were among the first to share their thoughts and support for George Floyd's family on social media yesterday. Today, we heard several NFL front office executives speak on the verdict.
We have made tremendous advancements in our way of life, except for dealing with race. It's not just people of color being affected. Look at what's happening with all the hate being directed towards the Asian community right now. I'm hopeful, but not naive to think that this verdict will change things. Politics and rhetoric have created a great divide in our country. We as an organization believe in bringing people together and valuing all human life. And I hope our country can move towards that too.
First and foremost, I think our thoughts and feelings are with George Floyd's family, and that we hope that they find healing in this moment. Yesterday's verdict, I don't think it was justice, it was accountability, and there's a lot more work to be done. And I have to recognize the players for the work that they have done with the organization to be part of that conversation. And there's still a lot of work to be done.
Washington President Jason Wright, he had this very emotional tweet yesterday. He says, quote, "I breathed deeply and unexpectedly, the tears flowed. I had no idea how much I carried this emotionally, and I'm guessing I'm not alone. No personal cynicism, of which I have a lot, can silence the hearts longing for justice." We'll be right back.
What's up, Devontae? It's AJ.
I'm not the biggest. I've been doubted a lot just because of my size.
Don't let no one call you small. Keep being yourself. Keep playing big.
Stop. Here's Bucky Brooks' top 5 wide receivers list. This was just released today. Yep, Devontae Smith in 3rd spot. His teammate Jalen Waddle just above him. And it's LSU's Jamar Chase at the top spot there. Let's get into the complex numbers now with our analytics expert, Cynthia Freeland. All right, Cyn, top 5 wide receivers here, but we're going to count them down. 5 to 1 here. The top spot, who do you have, or number 5 rather, who do you have and why?
Okay, so Kadarius Toney is number 5. Why? Because when I measure him in pads running, he's the 3rd fastest in when he's starting with 3 or more yards to work with, which means when he has open space, he's got that speed that you're going to need. PFF likes him too. He forced a missed tackle, meaning he's very physical. But I think the thing that's really interesting is he's faster than he may look on that film.
Oh, okay. So there's even more to see there from him. More. I love that. Not only is he an impactful receiver, he's always really good in the return game too. All right, Cyn, number 4, you have Terrence Marshall Jr. ¿Por qué?
Physical and versatile. Both of those things together. He has almost an 82% contested catch rate, which means when someone is in his face, up all around him. He comes down with it almost 82% of the time. That's huge. And then you see he also has versatility catching deep passes. This is a guy who's going to bring, maybe like the Baltimore Ravens, a lot of things to potentially like.
I like how you slid that in there just so
That's
casually.
where I like him to fit. Ravens take him.
By the way, this was the same guy that was on the 2019 team with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Still put up 13 receiving touchdowns. I would say so. I think that's a pretty good haul there. All right, you have the man holding the Heisman Trophy up next.
He is a great route runner. Devonta Smith, if you look to see the precision in his routes, meaning when I track him with computer vision, he can get open, get away from me, at least 3 yards. He is the best at it in this year's draft class. So it's really interesting to see, especially when he faces press coverage, just how versatile he can be, considering some people say maybe he's not big enough, blah, blah, blah. The math doesn't bear that out.
Listen, I hope they say, Devonta, get away from me, Smith, when they announce his name. By the way, the first wide receiver to win the Heisman in, 30-something years? I feel a little old there. All right, his teammate?
Well, you weren't born then.
So Cynthia, I love you so much.
Jalen Waddle is next. The interesting part about here, what I write down here, alignment versatility, and he has this fastest speed when he's open. So you give him 3 or more yards to work with, and he was the fastest per computer vision this year of all the wide receivers. That's really interesting because, of course, speed was not something we could measure with regular 40s this year, so I went back and did it all with pads so we could see the truth, the reality.
I love what they were clocking in this year, though, in the 40s. We're just going to go with those
If
from
you
now
were
on.
running a 4.4, were you even trying?
Right.
No.
4.2 or bust. All right, last but not least, Jamar Chase at the top of your list.
He didn't play last year, and he had 14 receiving touchdowns, which leads since 2019. So the past 2 seasons, that's ridiculous. He didn't even play, and he leads in that. He was also the most open on 10-plus yard air attempts. And by the way, his yards after the contact speed, he didn't have any fatigue from quarter 1 to quarter 4, at least fatigue in the past 5 seasons. How?
I'm fatigued walking from here to the end of the stage. That's ridiculous, but that's why I'm not a professional football player. All right, Cynthia, thank you. There will be 259 picks next week when the draft kicks off. So, hey, Willie, MJD, why don't you spotlight some of these prospects?
Yeah, you know we like to do that. And we don't want to talk about the players that everybody's been talking about, MJD, so let's go a little bit deeper and talk about a guy who you really like in this draft.
Yeah, Jared Patterson out of the University of Buffalo. Now, sometimes it's a level of competition, right? They'll say, you didn't play anybody. Well, if you're not going to play anyone, you have to ball out. This guy scored 19 touchdowns in 6 games. He rushed for over 400 yards in 1 game against Kent State. Like, he's a monster. And then on top of that, Willie, he was coached by one of the greats. Where's the tape? Where's the tape? Here it comes. He was coached by one of the greats. Look, I got an opportunity to coach this young man, and we'll get to it in a second, but he's driven. He wants to be great. He understands. He trains his butt off, and there you go. You see, watch the throw. The throw, look at him getting out of those breaks, and the throw's right there for him to go show you his hands. I told him I'm going to pressure him, and I'm going to make him be great out here. And so, again, it's always good to see young guys. He's also 5'7". Great things come in small packages.
So you love him.
So I love him.
Absolutely,
but I think he can fit in any system. He's going to be lights out.
Right, and I get it. And before you run my tape, I just want to talk about this kid, his measurables, okay? Jamin Davis, what he did at the Combine from Kentucky, linebacker. He vertical jumped 42.5. He ran a 4.47, okay? And he broad jumped 11 feet. I'm telling you right now, this kid is a monster. So if you're comparing him to somebody in the league, it's probably Fred Warner, Levante David, and Darius Leonard, okay? Now, run the tape so I can show you how fluid this kid is. You can do a lot of different things with him, okay? In space, he's one of the best. He's going to come down. He's long, so he's going to wrap you up. He can weave his way through traffic, make the big plays, all right? Here's the other thing, athleticism. In space, you got to be able to slip these big tackles and these uncoordinated guys once you get them in space. He can do that. Put him on the edge. You're not going to block him. He's fast enough to get around the edge and make a big play. All right, now ball skills. He's like walked out on the slot receiver right here. Great inside technique. He's reading the coverage, reading the quarterback, comes down, great ball skills with the ball. The other thing, fluid hips. In space, you got to be fluid these days because they like to spread you and throw the ball. He's dropping into a zone, identify, watching the quarterback, getting to where he needs to be, set his feet. And the most important thing, MJ, did is right here.
He took it to the house.
Get to the house. You cannot get caught by a lineman or a tight end or anybody else. And the quarterback don't want no problem, so we can work on the flip, but getting to the house. So it's good that you